How you doing? This is Mike for Mike's Random Thoughts, and this is why knowledge and real-world experience actually matters. Now, I'm still in writing mode, which for me also means that I'm constantly thinking. And when I start thinking, naturally I'm going to start reflecting. And as we all know, reflection, it can be brutally heavy on our minds. It forces us to stop and ask some serious hard questions. Like, what have I done with my time on Earth? What time have I actually wasted? What do I still need to do before the clock in the sky actually ticks out? Because you can make no mistake about it. The clock in the sky is just ticking on by. And life is short, and it can be brutally short at that. You never know what can happen. Now, most people, they're kind of stuck in neutral, okay? And what I mean by that is they're waiting for like a green light that probably never will come. Now, waiting for the perfect timing, they'll say. They'll say, I'm waiting for permission. But life, you can be sure, it does not wait for you. It does not care if you're comfortable. It just will continue to move on by. And you either move with it or you're going to get left behind. Now, most people think that living big means traveling across the whole world, climbing mountains, filling out a passport with a lot of stamps on it proving that you've been places. Sure, I mean, if you can actually do that, right? However, living, it is also about curiosity. It's about breaking your own self-routines. It's about asking some questions and stepping outside of your comfort zone and trying some different things. Thinking a little bit different. Now, if you're stuck in one place, limited by money, health, or circumstances, you can still explore. Because exploring is not always about geography. It's about the mind. It's about the center. It's about the way you choose to actually connect with other people around you. We live in a time when the world fits into our own pocket. The internet, social media, podcasts, videos, you have more knowledge available than kings and emperors ever had. Right in your pockets right now. Now, you're basically, essentially, what I'm trying to say is you're carrying the biggest free global library. A whole world, voices and thoughts. A universe of universal experiences that you can see for yourself. If you want to know something, you simply can. And if you want to get to know someone from a certain region or environment, you can. It's just a matter if you choose to or not. Now, when I was a kid, my grandpa Sarge, he used to tell me, if you want to know something, go out and find out about it. Simple words, but they actually became part of my foundation of how I chose to live my life. You know, don't just talk about something. Do not just repeat something. And never just assume. Go out and actually learn. Go out and seek for yourself what the truth is. Search. Experience. And if you are going to speak on something, you better know what you're talking about, or know somebody that has, or something like that. Now, people today, they often say everybody has been lied to. They say, right, the news and the media is fake. I mean, who knows what the truth is anymore, Mike, they'll say. But folks, here is the solid truth. If you want to know something like what the truth about something is, you have the ability to know. The truth is out there. It always has been out there. The real question is, what are you willing to do to get that truth, to get that universal knowledge? Because it's available, and most of the time it's available right in your pocket. You know, that's basically how I chose to live my life, though, outside of devices. I mean, that was my philosophy of how to live. That's why I always say I'm lucky that I grew up in a military family and got a chance to travel and all that. Now, if I wanted to know something, right, I went all in, man. I would get books. I would watch documentaries, interviews. conversations. If it was local, I would try to show up to where the area was that the event happened or whatever it might be I'm looking up. I'll try to sit with people. I'll eat their food. I'll drink their drinks, and I'll listen to their stories. Okay, hear me out on this for a second. If it was too far, I would find a way to communicate with them, such as video calls, forums, threads, late night chats with strangers halfway across the world, really, depending on your time zone. But see, growing up in Sacramento, I got a chance to grow up around a very diverse city. And I got to experience a lot of different cultures directly just from daily interactions I had with different people. And that's what I meant. Like, I would sit with them. I would, if there was like a ceremony going on, I would participate with it. And that's what I meant by actually sitting there, eating their drinks, talking with them, and listening to their stories and finding out why they're doing what they're doing, but for your own self. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not reading it. You're actually talking with the people and finding out for yourself. It's not this guy over here said, well, I have this degree and I studied this, or I worked over here, this or that. No, you're literally going to the horse's mouth and talking to the person directly, even if that's by video call. That way you can actually find out what the truth is because you're hearing it from the people that's involved or living there. Now, why do I say this? Because the best way to find out something and to gain understanding of something is to experience it for yourself somehow. Now, see it with your own eyes, like I said. Feel it with your own hands. Taste it, touch it, smell, and listen. That's where the real connection comes from, is human interaction. Seriously, that's where majority of stuff lies in, is our interaction with one another. Now, see, I was a military brat, and I grew up on Air Force bases, okay? I lived overseas in England for 4 years. I actually walked streets older than my own country is, literally. And I actually toured castles. I stood inside cathedrals that actually carried real history in their very stones that the building is built in. That actually changed me forever. It made me realize that the world is bigger than just my little neighborhood or just my little town. Bigger, like I say right here, bigger than my city, bigger than America itself, essentially. That planted the seed of my motto: explore and experience life for yourself. But however, here's the other side. No, I did not live clean. I made numerous reckless choices. Believe me, I did. Some would say I still do sometimes. I put myself in very dangerous environments. I trusted the wrong people sometimes. I saw things, however, most people will never see. Some things that I saw, I don't think I'd even want people to see or experience. Now, I've worked every kind of job imaginable that a general laborer can get. Landscaping in the Tahoe Mountains, welding in hot shops. I've done carpentry, forestry, cutting down huge trees in Tahoe. I have done metal roofing, commercial metal roofing at that. I've worked in the oil fields, tank farms. I've operated jackhammers, breaking mountain-sized boulders and clearing trail. I've done hazmat work. I've done small confined space human rescue. I've even done hospital custodial work, hotel cleaning, laundry rooms. I've been a dishwasher more times than I can count over. I have worked overnight gas stations and morning time and in between. All kinds of different retail jobs, stocking and actually unloading trucks. I've actually had OSHA certifications, CPR training certifications. I've also been homeless as well. I've slept in motels, shelters, and cars. I've picked up day labor jobs just to try to make it through. And what I mean by that is back in the day, like at the homeless mission or different spots, they would come by and they would ask if anybody needs some extra cash. They got a couple jobs they need done, and they would pick you up, take you to go work, pay you that same day, and then drop you back off where they got you at. I did that off and on. Now, restaurants, that was a whole nother world to me, okay? I started by scrubbing dishes in mom and pop diner spots. Like, what I mean by that is the small little hole-in-the-wall spots. You know what I'm saying? That's where I got my start in restaurants at. And it was actually bussing tables and dishwashing. And then I started working at Denny's overnight. then Dairy Queen. And I worked my way up the restaurant business from busboy to host to prep cook, line cook, and eventually made it to junior sous chef. Now, not because I went to culinary school either, but because I was hungry. I was hungry to learn the craft. I studied recipes all night long and all day. I modified them. I would take them and try to add different things and make my own spin on it. I would watch culinary videos. I mean, I'm talking from like when people were out clubbing, that's what I was doing. I was actually sitting in this very room, only my desk was off to the other side back then. And I would just stay up all night long watching culinary institutions, like their videos, their lectures. And I would also watch like different chef shows and learning different crafts and trying to figure out different recipes. Sometimes all night longs. Now, I bought my knife set one by one, building it piece by piece, okay? Trial and error, essentially in life, was my classroom. I burnt hands and long hours were my teachers. For real. Literally what I mean by that is in my life, as I mentioned before, having autism and ADHD and living the lifestyle that I've lived, essentially trial and error is the only way I know. I'll try it out, I'll mess up, and I learn from that. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of like my dad used to say. My dad, may he rest in peace, but my dad, he used to say, when I would mess up, he would laugh a little bit and say, "Now what did you learn?" You know, it was one of those things. Now, I also studied business in school, economics, business law, and marketing. Then I worked real estate, okay? And grinding in high pressure sales at that. I was a cold sales operator. I was a guy that would get you to come in to refinance your home. I would go over your loans that you had, how much they were, how much equity you had built, square footage of house, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to chop shop, but that's basically essentially what it was, to try to convince you to come in and sign off on your house and get a new loan. And honestly, I crushed it back then. That is until the California housing crash ripped us all apart. I mean, I'm talking that sucker. I'll just never forget that morning. I showed up to work. I worked at a call center trying to get people to come in. My job was to get them to agree to come in to talk to the loan officer. I was known as the assistant loan officer. And my job was to do sales and get them to come in and say, "Hey, you're interested in this loan. You don't know it, but hear me out, and I'm going to tell you why you need it," essentially. So when the housing market crashed, I came in, and everybody was outside chain smoking cigarettes, and there was like pink slips everywhere. And they basically fired everybody. And eventually, even my bosses, I see them in a casino, kind of thing later on. The housing market, I don't think, never really came back in California, but I'll never forget when it started. Because I lost that job because of that. However, later I ended up doing furniture sales. I learned persuasion. And I learned how fragile security really is. See, the grind taught me something. No job is actually safe. No paycheck is actually guaranteed. And knowledge is the ability to adapt and learn, is the only thing that carries you forward when everything else surely will collapse. Because I've seen it collapse on me before. Now, through it all, I've met numerous types of people. I've met addicts. I've met prostitutes, hustlers, gangsters, strippers, professors, pastors, artists, entrepreneurs, and I do mean real entrepreneurs. I've sat in corporate offices where criminals wore ties and carried briefcases. I've sat in motels where people sold their bodies just to get a little bit high or help sell some dope. I've seen both sides of the tracks, boardrooms and the back alley. And I'll tell you the truth. The line between them is not always as wide as people actually think. They're almost the same dang road. Well, they are. Yes, I've seen the darkness, the underground worlds, the obsessions, and the addictions. I've had near-death experiences. I've survived overdoses. Hold on. And some people I watched losing themselves forever. I try not to think about some of that stuff, as I mentioned before in the previous episodes. But even in the middle of all that chaos, I was still studying. I was still seeking skills and asking questions. I was still trying to learn. I would link up to anybody I thought that I could learn from. I was like a sponge. If I thought that I could learn something from you, I would try to be around that person somehow, just so I could soak up the game and figure out how they're doing it. You know what I mean? And I would even go out and learn something on it just so I could make conversation normally, you know? Now, even when I was surrounded by a complete mess, I kept reading. I took anthropology, theology, history. I read numerous books. I mean, I devoured them. I watched documentaries. I listened to talk radio with my homeboys while my homeboys clown me. You know, it's true too. I mean, like Truth and Skrill and On One, Mies, like everybody, Blue. They'd always be like, Mike, man, turn that talk radio off. Ain't nobody trying to hear that stuff, man. Knock it off. However, I never did stop. I often would actually get them to listen to it by telling them, this is how I find out about the taxes getting taken out of our paychecks, meaning the government saying, where's my piece? That kind of got their attention, you know? Anyways, story for another day. Now, sometimes, like I was just saying, sometimes the same people that would be joking around with me, they would actually start listening. And they would actually start asking their own questions. Meaning, seeds of knowledge got planted. So yeah, and eventually some, they even grew. See, I believe in free knowledge. A lot of people don't like that about me. I always have. History shows why that is. Knowledge has always been controlled by the powerful. Remember earlier I said I loved history? It was hoarded. It was restricted. The poor, the enslaved, and the broken were told, do not worry about learning. You don't need to know about that. That's out of your pay grade, out of your realm of thinking. It's just going to waste your time with trying to figure out something like that, you know? You don't need to know about it. Just go work. Just obey the rules. That is the reason why slaves, by the way, were not allowed to read or write. That is why books are still banned today. That is why companies lock education behind paywalls. Because once you learn, you open your eyes. And once you start thinking for yourself, you'll become more dangerous to society. Knowledge is power. Outside of God, it is the only real power one has. That is why it is still censored, packaged, sold, and controlled. That is why tech companies bait you with free apps that charge you for everything that actually matters to use it. They do not want thinkers. They only want consumers. So, here's the good news. Artists always find a way, don't we? Seekers will always find a way, won't they? Rebels will always find a way, will they not? You can shut down a platform, but you cannot kill the curiosity. You can ban a book, but somehow, someone will still tell that same story. You can lock information behind walls, but somehow, someone eventually will still break that lock. That is the human spirit. That is rebellion. That is the truth. So do us all a favor out there. Do not stop thinking. Do not stop exploring. Do not let the algorithms and ads start shrinking your world. Ask the questions that nobody else is willing to ask. No one ever thought to ask. Read the books that nobody else is reading, that everybody else chooses to ignore. Talk to the people that nobody else is willing to talk to. Go post the truth on all the social media platforms if you can. Because when it is all said and done, life won't be measured by your money or your possessions or your interest and likes. It will be measured by your experiences, your lessons, your knowledge, and the impact that you had on other people's lives. You get what I'm saying? The impact that you had on other people's lives. So do not wait for permission. Do not wait for the right time. Do not wait for a life to go, hey, here's the key to that you were seeking. People, the keys, they're already in your hand. You got to understand, this is just short OTT, but real knowledge actually matters. You know, when I was a child, I don't really speak about this often. And right now I'm doing a lot of reflection pieces. So I didn't learn how to read or write until I was around 5 or 6 years old. I had speech problems growing up. A lot of people with my disorder do. So I was in speech therapy for majority of my education. I think until about junior high school. They took me out of it. Because I had major speech problems because of my early childhood. I didn't talk hardly at all. And other issues. So there's all kinds of reasons why this stuff matters to me. You know, I started reading at 6 and I just kept reading, and I discovered documentaries at a young age too. Like other kids were watching Looney Tunes and I was watching like the History Channel or the Discovery Channel and things like that. I used to skip class and go read books in the library and then point out to the teachers how the textbook, they left out this part, then they left out this part, and they left out this part. And I guess, if truth be told, one could say that part of the reason why I was like that is when you're told that, growing up, when you're told that the realistic approach is you're probably going to be working a minimum wage, basic level job, and you might have some mild success in life, but you know, ultimately it's probably what you're going to end up as. You tend to want to learn a bunch of things. You know, when you have to deal with psychologists at a young age, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. When you have to deal with psychologists at a young age, I wanted to know what they were talking about. You know, they would say that I have this disorder, or I'm experiencing this, or this emotional response, or this or that. And I would want to find out why. And another example of that is later on when I asked about God, I was told you just have to pray about it and ask for forgiveness, all right? I knew there was more to it than that. So I used to walk to the base church, and I would pick different denomination services to go to. So that started in high school when I was seeking out the truth as far as spiritual truth goes. That started off in high school and just lasted my whole life. I wanted to know the truth about God. You know, growing up, I always knew that there had to be something, you know, some kind of universal truth. I remember thinking about that in high school, you know, how if everybody basically believes in some type of God, surely there is a God. You know, I literally sought out the truth since high school about my faith. When people ask me, why do you feel the way you do? Well, I devoured book after book after book. I went to church service after church service after church service. I talked to priest after priest, preacher after preacher, pastors, all kinds of people, my whole life to try to find the answer. I was an occultist for majority of the time, dabbling in different things. And then when I became a Christian again, you know, I kind of saw the light and I have my own personal experience for that. And I'm walking proof of that. Jesus can actually save anybody. I just wanted to say that. You know, I've talked a lot about my past these past couple episodes, and I'm getting ready to go into a lot of other type of episodes. But I want you to know that, you know, there are people out there that try to tell me that I was unsavable, you know, because of my affiliations that I had with Satanism and the occult, that there was no way that I could actually be saved. And then I found out that I could. But even before then, even before I verified that, I had my own experience, you know, and that is when I felt the presence of the Lord. I felt the warmth, and I seen the light coming from him, and I felt the coldness and the darkness behind me. And that's what I mean. I had my own personal experience to where I can walking proof that he could reach into the depths and grab anyone and save them. So don't let anybody ever try to tell you that you can't achieve it, that you can't do it, and don't let anybody ever try to tell you that you can't be saved. Because there's no sin other than one. And I'm not going to go into details about that yet. That is unforgivable. Every sin is forgivable. And with that said, it sounds like my kids are about to get home from school. So I'm just going to keep this a short podcast episode. And I just want you guys to know that this is a little story about why I feel like, the reason why is, if you worked with me, like you've heard me say this before, man, if you want to know something, go out and find a way to touch it, feel it, see it for yourself and experience it. Travel, go talk to the people from there. You know what I mean? Don't just listen to this guy over here or this girl over there. Why don't you go find out for yourself? Or talk to them. Find a way online and talk to them. Hey, you live over here in this country. I got some questions I want to run by you. Would you be willing to answer them for me? I guarantee you majority of people will. I seriously do. But I wanted to go over this real quick with you guys. So we got another episode coming your way very soon. And I'm trying to figure out. I think I'm not going to do one of these. I'm going to save this first one for later. So the next episode you guys can expect to hear would be, why are things so crazy right now at this time period that we're living in, okay? And again, let me just say that again, if you're still here. God will still forgive your sins. There's only one sin that's not forgivable. Only one. No matter what anybody else told you, there's only one sin that's not forgivable. And with that said, this is Mike from Mike's Random Thoughts. You guys have a new episode coming your way very, very soon. Hope everybody has a great night, and I'll hear from you guys soon.